In the quiet stretch between the towns of Elkmont and Raven Forge, where the Appalachian Mountains grew so thick with pine and hemlock that even the wind felt lost, people whispered about sightings, shadows in branches, figures that perched where no human could balance, shapes watching from the trees as if the forest itself had eyes. Most locals talked in low voices, dismissing the tales as imagination, but the fear lingered, old and heavy, like something inherited. It was into this deep-rooted superstition that Amelia Rowan drove one October evening, her car packed with recording gear, notebooks, and a camera she hoped would capture evidence of the strange occurrences that hikers, hunters, and travelers had been reporting for decades. Amelia had always been drawn to mysteries, but more than that, she was drawn to the stories her grandmother once told her. Stories of beings who lived, not above the trees, but inside them, she used to say, tapping the thin, wrinkled skin of her knuckles against Amelia's forehead as if knocking a warning directly into her mind. Amelia's grandmother died before she could finish those stories, leaving only fragmented warnings behind, but Amelia had grown into them, chasing answers like they were pieces of a puzzle she was born to complete. The road was growing darker as her car cut the silence, her headlights slicing through fog that seemed too dense to be natural. She rolled down the window slightly. The scent of damp soil drifted in, earthy and strangely metallic, like iron and rain. Her phone buzzed with a message from her friend and fellow researcher, Ben, reminding her to check in every hour. She texted him a thumbs up and continued winding along the back road until she reached the old ranger station she'd rented for the night. The building sagged slightly but stood strong, with moss crawling up its walls like ancient script. Inside, Amelia set up her equipment, mapping out the locations where sightings had occurred. The Cragback Trail, the Overlook Ridge, and the place hikers called the Hanging Canopy, a region where the trees arched over the path like a ribcage overhead. That was where most sightings were reported. Figures sitting in branches that should have snapped under any weight, glowing eyes staring at travelers until they fled. Amelia had planned to start her investigation early the next morning, but something tugged at her curiosity. The forest outside was too quiet. No crickets, no rustling leaves, no distant animals. It felt like the entire mountain range was holding its breath. She grabbed her camera, whispering to herself that she'd just take a quick look outside. The night air bit at her skin as she stepped off the porch, and the silence pressed in, pushing her heartbeat louder in her ears. She scanned the trees with her flashlight. The beam cut across branches like a knife through velvet, but everything looked still. Then she heard it, a soft clicking sound, like two stones tapping together. She turned slowly, raising her flashlight. Nothing. She exhaled, trying to steady herself, but the clicking came again, this time from above. She lifted the light higher. A shape crouched on a branch, motionless. At first, she thought it might be an owl, but the outline was too long, too thin, like a stretched silhouette. The shape shivered once, then its head rotated. Not turned, but rotated, toward her, the motion unnatural, smooth, continuous, like a hinge. Amelia froze. She couldn't see its face, but she could feel its gaze, sharp and cold. The clicking grew louder. She stepped back, her breath trembling in her chest, and the shape leaned forward, balancing on the branch with impossible precision. The forest floor behind her cracked. Another shape shifted in the trees. Then another. And another. High above her, between every cluster of branches, were silhouettes, perched, watching, motionless except for the slow tilt of their heads following her. Amelia backed toward the cabin, nearly tripping over the steps before slamming the door behind her. Inside, she pressed her back against the wall, panting. Her flashlight beam shook across the interior as she tried to calm herself. Just shadows, she whispered. Just tricks of light. But she didn't believe it. She set up a night vision camera facing the window and turned on the audio recorder. The clicking sound continued outside, echoing against the cabin walls like fingernails on glass. At exactly 2:14 a.m., the camera picked up movement. Amelia, half asleep at the desk, jerked awake to the sound of something tapping the window. She stared at the door, her mouth dry. The tapping grew faster, as if impatient. She forced herself to look. Something was peering in, its face pressed to the glass. Pale. Too pale. Its eyes were wide, black, glossy like beetles. Its skin was thin like parchment stretched too tightly over bone. When Amelia blinked, it blinked, delayed, as though unsure how to mimic her motion. Then it smiled, revealing teeth that didn't look sharp, but wrong, flat and many, layered like plates. Amelia stumbled backward, grabbing her camera, but when she turned back to the window, the face was gone. The door rattled violently. She screamed, throwing her weight against it. But then it stopped. Silence again. Only the hum of the old cabin lights filled the space. Amelia didn't sleep. She waited until dawn painted the trees gold before stepping outside again. The forest felt different in the daylight, warmer, almost welcoming. Birds chirped as squirrel darted across the path. But Amelia couldn't shake the memory of the faces in the window. Determined, she hiked toward the hanging canopy trail. The path wound upward through thick roots and damp leaves, sunlight flickering between branches like restless shadows. A mile in, she found something strange, deep scratch marks in the bark of several trees, high up, far above her reach. They weren't random claw marks. They formed patterns, spirals, lines intersecting at odd angles. She took pictures, leaning closer, when she noticed something wedged in the bark, strands of what looked like hair, long, thin, translucent. They shimmered slightly in the light, like silver threads. Amelia pocketed them carefully. As she ventured deeper, the forest grew dimmer, as if the canopy above thickened intentionally. The wind died. The air tightened. Then she heard it again, the clicking. It echoed from tree to tree, circling her. Amelia steadied her camera, her pulse pounding. She raised it toward the canopy. There they were, 3 figures crouched on branches, their limbs long and spindly, their heads tilted unnaturally, their eyes reflecting green in the lens. They watched her without moving, like predators evaluating prey. Amelia didn't run. She lifted her camera higher, snapping picture after picture. The clicking intensified. The figures unfolded themselves from the branches, slowly, their limbs bending at angles that made her stomach churn. Then they dropped. Not all the way down, only a few feet, catching themselves with elongated fingers on lower branches, descending level by level. Amelia stepped back, breath ripping out of her throat. "Stay back," she whispered, as though they could understand. They stopped. All 3 stared. One of them opened its mouth slightly, and the clicking sound came directly from it, as if its jawbone held some hidden mechanism. Amelia slowly raised her hands and backed away. The creatures clung to the branches, unmoving again, but she could feel their eyes drilling into her back as she retreated. When she reached the base of the trail, she didn't stop. She ran all the way to the cabin, slammed the door, and collapsed to the floor, sobbing with a mix of terror and triumph. She had proof. She had undeniable footage, shapes, faces, movements, sounds. As she replayed the audio, she noticed something chilling beneath the clicking, a faint whispering. Layered voices, low, broken, almost human. It repeated the same phrase, still watching, that night. As storm clouds rolled over the mountains, Amelia packed her equipment, ready to leave first thing in the morning. She sent all her data to Ben, including the video, the audio, and pictures of the markings. But as she lay in bed, she felt something was wrong. The forest was too quiet again. The storm winds didn't reach the cabin. Even the air felt heavy, unmoving. At 3:03 a.m., a sound broke the silence, wood creaking. The beams above shifted under weight. Something was walking on the roof. Amelia bolted upright, gripping her flashlight. The steps were deliberate, slow, spaced too far apart to be human. Then came the scratching, long drags of something sharp across the shingles. She grabbed her keys, deciding she couldn't wait until morning. As she yanked open the door, rain exploded across her face. Lightning illuminated the trees, and she saw them. Dozens. Figures perched in the branches surrounding the cabin, their eyes glowing like wet stones. She sprinted to the car, slipping in mud, and just as she reached the door, something dropped in front of her, landing silently on 2 impossibly thin legs. Its face was inches from hers. Those black eyes reflected her shaking silhouette. The creature tilted its head, fascinated, before slowly lifting its hand, long fingers ending in rounded tips that pressed gently against her cheek. It wasn't attacking. It was studying her. Lightning flashed again, revealing more dropping from the trees, surrounding her like a ring of shadows. One of them leaned close, its voice trembling through broken vocal cords. "See you?" Amelia gasped, scrambling backward, and with a burst of adrenaline, she dove into the car, slammed the door, and sped off the mountain road. As she drove through sheets of rain, the shapes chased her through the treetops, keeping pace effortlessly, their forms blurring between branches. Only when she hit the main highway did they vanish into the darkness. Amelia never returned to Elkmont, but the footage she recorded spread quickly among researchers, horror enthusiasts, and skeptics alike. Some claimed it was fabricated, others insisted it was the most believable evidence of forest cryptids yet. But Amelia knew the truth. The creatures weren't confined to that mountain. Sometimes, late at night in her apartment several states away, she would hear faint clicking sounds outside her window, soft, distant, patient. And in her peripheral vision, just beyond the glow of streetlights, she occasionally saw shapes perched too high in the trees, watching. Always watching. Waiting for her to look up.